Hello again, everyone. In this video, I'm going to give you a little bit of better insight into step 2 if you haven't figured it out already, and also give you a better picture of the overall project and the steps that we need to go and to get the end product. Um, in that regard, whenever you're doing some kind of analytical assignment like this, the end formation or organization, it's going to be in columns. So like we have here, we'd have a dependent variable, standard deviation, and several independent variables. In our case, we'll have number of stops, weeks until departure, the time of day, the day of the week, the distance of the market, and maybe daily passengers, just for examples. So you'll notice that this group right here is a combination of many different itineraries that we pulled in our data collection. There could be 20, 30, 15 different itineraries that fit this criteria. In the way that these are grouped and the number of subcategories for each variable, it turns out to be about 336 combinations of standard deviations for each market pair. So, for my 4 different markets, it'll come out to be about 1,345 or 1,344. In each one of those, for each market, there's 336 unique combinations of itineraries that we're going to group together. So, the key is finding, we have our data collection information and we need to categorize it like this. And, furthermore, Excel can't read this or this morning or noon. It's going to have to look like this. And we'll just have to figure out how we're going to categorize our data into these different subcategories. And so that's what step 2 is figuring out how to get from here into a more usable format so that we can then calculate standard deviation. So I'm going to have to look at the project in 5 steps. We just did step 1. Step 2 is then reorganizing this data. Step 3 will be calculating standard deviation based upon the criteria. Step 4 will be reorganizing it, and then step 5 will be the final analysis. So hopefully you've taken a look already at the spreadsheet that Dr. Algani emailed to everyone. This is what I had put together last week, and it was kind of a rough draft. I didn't expect it to be sent out in its current form, and I apologize if it is confusing. So I'm going to try to dissect this for you and give you a better idea of what I was thinking when I was putting this stuff together. So if we go back to our combined data collection set, and we're going to copy that information into our new worksheet, we're going to then look at this data and turn it into a more usable format. So the first variable we will do is day of the week, and this is easy. Excel has a built-in function. It's called the weekday function, and it just returns a numerical value tied to the day of the week. So 3 is Tuesday, 2 is Monday, and 1 is Sunday. The next, would like to do weeks until departure, and I use a 2-step process. I do day to depart, and that's pretty simple. Subtract that out, and then for weeks, I'm actually just going to copy my other work here, and I'll show you real quick. So I use a combination of nested if statements. So if this dates to depart value is greater than 53, it'll be 8 weeks until departure. If it's 32, 5 weeks, and so on and so forth. And you'll notice that these they're not multiples of 7, because I gave some leeway in case somebody, if you didn't collect the data on the 15th, maybe you did it on the 14th, the 16th. So there's a little leeway in that, and that shouldn't be a problem. For the next variable, which is the takeoff time, I did a little bit of a complicated way. Ritesh and Aditya, they came up with the idea of using the find and replace function. So if you hit Control F and replace, let's say, replace the AM with a space AM, I'll just show you real quick. It turns the function, the format into this. And this is a usable format for Excel. It reads this as a time, whereas when it's together like this, it reads it as a text string. So that's a pretty easy way of doing it. And you do the same thing for the PM. But just because I had my formula set up the other way, I'm just going to show you that real quick, and you might learn something anyway. So for the way I did it, I broke up this text string right here. I broke it up into the left side and the right side. And then I broke it up again just to the hours. I had to reformat the hours to adjust for the midnight and the 12 p.m. Because they get a little funky when you need to convert it to 24-hour time format. Take out the minutes, combine them together into decimal time, and then I group them with nested if statements. So right here it says if R2, which is our takeoff time in decimal format. If it's between 6 and 18, it's night. If it's between 6 and 10, it's morning, and so on and so forth. So, that's kind of either way. If you did it this way, or if you use the find and replace, this column should be pretty much the same. So we'll just double click those down, and I'm going to copy a bunch of extra stuff that you can disregard. But the next variable will be number of stops. So basically, when you look at how the data was copied into Excel, it's just in a text format. So we have 3 letters here, 2 dashes here, and then there's 2 3-letter airport codes with a comma and a space in between. So there's consistency, and whenever you have consistency, you can use that to your advantage. And so we can use more if statements and this len function, which counts the number of characters in a text string. So it's reading I2, it's counting the number of characters in that cell. So if the number of characters is less than 3, it'll be a 0, a non-stop flight. And so, 1, 2 for the dashes. If it's greater than 10, that'll be a 3-stop flight. If it's greater than 3, it'll 2-stop flight. If it is equal to 3, it's 1. And my default error code right there. There's many combinations of inequalities that you can use to set that up, and that's just the way how I did it. But I've already seen many different combinations just with this project alone. So I'm just going to double check that, and so 1 1 0 0. It looks good. Moving on. This isn't necessarily a variable in itself, but for organization purposes, you notice that I had the Minnesota and New York City market, and I included all the airports, major airports in New York, so LaGuardia, JFK, and Newark. But because my market is just the city pair, not necessarily airport pair, I need to consolidate these different combinations of airports, all the ones for Dallas, the ones for Houston and Chicago. And the way I did that, I used this combination. So I split up the market. To the left, there's origin, destination, and then so right now it says if this was one of those, let me scroll down. Yes, there we go. So if it's Chicago or O'Hare, it just becomes Chicago. Right here. Or if it's George Bush, it becomes Houston. And then the city pair goes back together like that, using the ampersands to combine the cells. So that's pretty much as far as the reformatting goes. And so, to kind of prepare for the next step, we'll just copy all the data, and we're going to put it up. I didn't want to do that. Hold on a sec. I'm going to paste the values here, and then I'm going to get rid of all the superfluous information. So we're going to days, don't need that, don't need that, don't need that either. Actually, I don't even need any of that. And you can ignore the stuff on the right. Go away. So this is pretty much all you need as far as step 2 is concerned. We have the price. The airline is superfluous, but I'm leaving it in there just in case we want to look at that later. Day of the week, weeks into departure, the takeoff grouping, number of stops, and the city pair grouping. So um, that looks pretty good. So the next step, I guess step 3, would then be calculating the standard deviations, and most likely we'd use a pivot table. They're pretty straightforward to use. I mean, I can just create one right now just for show. I'll put it right here. So you would have price and the values, day of the week in a row. Might switch these around. And then for filters, you would need takeoff grouping and number of stops and city pair. And this would become standard deviation. And it does a sample. So you would go through here. You would do evening, or I would start with morning. Do morning, nonstop, and let's do it for Chicago to Houston. And once you have this information, we're really just looking at the 1 through 7. We don't need this grand total, so I can. It's under options, I think. Get rid of those. And from here, it becomes a copy and paste. You have to take this data and dump it. And I've pre-formatted these columns to match the rows and the labels. So you would just kind of do really a reiterative process. Do noon, evening, night, each time copy and pasting it and dropping it. We call it the data drop worksheet. And you would do this for a bunch of times. Yeah, you do that almost 200 times, and it is pretty tedious, but it wouldn't take that long, half an hour at most. And it would fill up that column, and you should notice that there's already zeros, because in this market there is literally no standard deviation. There's no variation in the pricing for nonstop flights between these two markets 8 weeks into the future. So it's just something to take note. And you'll even find some markets that don't have any itineraries, and it will probably come up as a not like something like that. But that's not a big deal. And anyway, that's the next step. I just kind of wanted to show you where we're going from here, so you have a better idea, of why we're doing what we're doing. But as far as step 2 is concerned, we're really just looking at this organization, getting our collected data into more usable groupings so that we can identify those unique criteria combinations for our standard deviations. And that should put us well on our way to getting the final analysis done. So thanks for listening, and good luck.